Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for inconvenient time and inconvenient for the trouble of the Zoom. We will begin our session to this presentation. I will repeat all from the beginning. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Haryanto Smarmata, and I will be serving as your moderator for the session. It is a great honor to welcome you to all the participants of International Conference on Interdisciplinary for Sustainable Development INTERDIS 2025, organized by APTISI Commissariat 6B in collaboration with Universitas Informatika dan Bisnis Indonesia UNIBI. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce all the presenters of this session in room A9. The first presenter is Melinda, but I cannot see Melinda. The second presenter is Gingin Ginanjar. Same as Melinda, I can see Gingin. The third presenter is Amira Naja Gasani. And the fourth, Rama Setiadi Irawan. And the last is Muhammad Januar Indra Praja. Maybe Melinda and Gingin have a trouble. The first presenter in this session is Amira Naja Gasani. I will like kindly to remind all to all the participants to mute all the microphone. Operator, we like to hear the first presentation from Amira Naja Gasani. Amira Naja Gasani, the stage is yours.
First of all, thank you for taking the time to attend my presentation today. My name is Amira Najagasani from University Informatika and Business Indonesia. Today I will present my research proposal entitled Comparison of Conventional Mutual Fund and Sharia Mutual Fund using Sharpe Ratio, Treynor Ratio, and Jensen Ratio method for the period 2020 to 2024. This research is motivated by the growing public interest in capital market investment, particularly through mutual funds, which are considered easy, affordable, and professionally managed. However, the net asset value trend of both conventional and Sharia mutual funds have shown a decline in recent years. Although Sharia mutual funds began to recovery in 2024. The performance of mutual fund also varies, which indicated that assessment should not rely solely on return but must also take into account the risk involved by using methods such as the Sharpe ratio, Treynor ratio, and Jensen ratio. During the 2020 to 2024 period, 5 conventional and Sharia mutual funds recorded negative Sharpe ratio, indicating that the return generated were not proportional to the risk undertaken. Diagram Treynor ratio. The majority of mutual funds, both conventional and Sharia-based, recorded negative Treynor ratio. Only a few, such as Pratama Saham and Bahasa Icon, were able to deliver returns that were proportionate to market risk. Diagram Jensen ratio. The Jensen ratio produced mixed results. However, the majority remained negative. Bahasa Icon stood out with the most consistent and highest performance in 2024, while many other products have yet to achieve optimal results. A research question. Based on the background, the research problem then can be formulated for this study are as follows. 1. How is the performance of conventional mutual fund and Sharia mutual fund described using the Sharpe ratio, Treynor ratio, and Jensen ratio during 2024 during the 2020 to 2024 period. Number 2. Is there a significant difference in the comparison between conventional mutual fund and Sharia mutual fund using the Sharpe ratio during the 2020 to 2024 period? 3. Is there a significant difference in the comparison between conventional mutual fund and Sharia mutual fund using the trainer ratio during the 2020 to 2024 period? Number 3. Is there a significant difference in the comparison between conventional mutual fund and Sharia mutual fund using the Jensen ratio during the 2020 to 2024 period? Research objective: to identify the comparative performance of conventional and Sharia mutual funds using the Sharpe ratio, Trainer ratio, and Jensen ratio during the 2020 to 2024 period. To examine whether there is a significant difference in the performance of conventional and Sharia mutual fund using the Sharpe ratio during the 2020 to 2024 period. To examine whether there is a significant difference in the performance of conventional and Sharia mutual fund using the trainer ratio during the 2020 to 2024 period. To examine whether there is a significant difference in the performance of conventional and Sharia mutual fund using the Jensen ratio during the 2020 to 2024 period. This research is grounded in 3 levels of theoretical framework. At the grand theory level, management and financial management explain the organization and allocation of financial resources to achieve investment goals. At the middle theory level, portfolio management theory emphasizes the importance of diversification and the performance evaluation based on risk and return. At the applied theory level, the Sharpe ratio, Trainer ratio, and Jensen ratio are utilized to assess mutual fund performance in terms of risk-adjusted return. The paradigm of this research involves measuring the Sharpe ratio, Trainer ratio, and Jensen ratio of conventional and Sharia mutual fund, followed by comparison of the results using different tests. Research hypothesis. Hypothesis 1. There is a significant difference between conventional and Sharia mutual funds based on the Sharpe ratio. Hypothesis 2. There is a significant difference between conventional and Sharia mutual fund based on the Trainer ratio. Hypothesis 3. There is a significant difference between conventional and Sharia mutual funds based on the Jensen ratio. A research method. This study used the descriptive approach to provide a systematic and objective overview and a comparative approach to test difference in performance. The population of this study comprised all conventional and Sharia mutual fund from 2020 to 2024. Criteria sampling: 5 conventional mutual fund and 5 Sharia mutual fund were selected using pervasive sampling based on specific criteria. Secondary technique of data collection and testing. Secondary data were obtained from the net asset value access through the Bareksa website, the Bank Indonesia rate, the BI rate from the official website of Bank Indonesia, and the Jakarta Composite Index from Yahoo Finance. Data analysis includes descriptive statistic, the Shapiro-Wilk test for normality, the independent sample t-test for normality distributed data, and the the Mann-Whitney test for non-normal data. The significance value greater than 0.05 indicates no significant difference, while a value less than 0.05 indicates a significant difference. That concludes my presentation. I hope this research provides valuable insight into the comparative performance of conventional and Sharia mutual fund using the Sharpe ratio, Trainer ratio, and Jensen ratio method. Risk adjusted performance evaluation is accepted to assist investor in making wiser and more informed investment decision. Thank you for your attention. I welcome any question or feedback you may have.
Okay, thank you, Amira, Naja, for your presentation. That is an information and excellent presentation from Amira. Amira, I have read a question from the chat box. The question for you is, what is the reason for choosing the Sharpe and Trainer and Jensen ratio in this research? Amira, you can answer this question.
Because these three approaches are standard in mutual fund performance evaluation as they incorporate both risk and investment return. That's it. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, thank you, Amira, for your answer. We will next to the next presenter. The next presenter is Rama Septiadi Irawan. Rama, you will presentation with the title Designing a Documentary Video about the Bamboo Musical Instrument Karinding for the People of Bandung. Rama, the stage is yours.
Hello, my name is Rama Septiadi Irawan. I am from student of Indonesian University of Informatik and Business, and allow me to presentation my journal about designing a documentary video about the bamboo musical instrument karinding for the people of Bandung. Introduction: the karinding is Sundanese cultural heritage with significant historical and musical value, made from natural materials such as bamboo or sugar palm fronds, and play using a unique technique that produces a distinctive sound, once used for entertainment, traditional ritual, and event-based control in rice field. Its extent is now threatened by modernization and declining interest among younger generation. The decreasing number of craftsmen and shifts in the music consumption patterns have made karinding increasingly rare. This research develops a documentary film as a preservation effort, presenting its history, crafting process, and playing technique visually so that young people, especially in Bandung, can rediscover and appreciate the karinding as part of Sundanese cultural identity. Literature review: several previous studies have discussed the importance of preserving traditional musical instruments as part of region cultural identity. According to Harness, traditional musical instruments function not only as form of entertainment but also as medium for conveying cultural value and historical narrative. Research by Ayu and Pratama in 2019 indicates that lifestyle change and influence of modern music are the main factor behind the declining interest of younger generation in traditional music instruments, including the karinding. And research by Sari 2021 also reveals that involving cultural figures and artisans in the documentation process can enhance the authenticity and educational value of the resulting work. Therefore, utilizing documentaries as a medium for cultural education and promotion can be effective strategy for preserving regional music instrument amid the tide of modernization. And the method, the study employs a descriptive qualitative approach using a case study method, focusing on production process of a documentary film about the karinding musical instrument. This approach was chosen as it allows the research to explore in depth the history, crafting technique, playing method, and cultural values of karinding, and the present of the finding in the form and audiovisual medium. The data collection stage, a literal review gathering information from various resources, including books, journal article, online publication, and community art archive, to understand the historical background, philosophy, and development of the karinding. Field observation conducts in several locations in Bandung and its surrounding area that serve as centers of karinding activities such as karinding workshop, art studio, and cultural perform events. This observation aims to document firsthand of the process making and the playing of karinding. In-depth interview carried out with key information including craftsmen, karinding players, and cultural preservation figure of Sundanese heritage. The interview are conducted in a semi-structured manner to maintain focus on the topic while allowing flexibility to explore the personal stories and experience of the informant. Data analysis, the data were analyzed equally by categorizing the finding into the four main focus: the history, crafting technique, playing technique, and cultural value of the karinding. The result of this analysis were the visualized in the form of documentary that is both information and engaging for the audience. Result and description. The production process is carried out the three phases: pre-production, production, and post-production. And in the pre-production, developing a story concept, determining location, and planning the technical aspect of filming. Production filming using observational and participatory documentary technique, utilizing video cameras, external microphone, and additional lighting when necessary. Post-production, editing the video, adding narration and background music, and as well making the visual adjustment reference the cultural atmosphere. The finding indicate that the Karinding documentary was able to enchant the audience knowledge and interest in Sundanese traditional music instrument. When the discussion highlight the importance of perseverance through the creative media to ensure that the culture remains alive amid the development of the modern era. This is my production. I'm use a website. The name is Milanot. And right here is the script what I make, script Karinding. And this is my audio from the microphone for the video. And this is my reference video. And it is a man behind of playing Karinding. And this production, my camera device is Sony Alpha 6400, and my lens is Sony 35mm f1.8, and stabilizer is Moza Aircross S, and my phone iPhone 11. In the Pascal production, I use a CapCut application for editing. And this is my reference, and thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rama, for your presentation. It's an excellent presentation. Rama, I have question from the chat box from the audience. The question for you is, what was the original function of the karinding in the past before it became a musical instrument for entertainment? Rama?
Okay, thank you, sir. So let me answer that. So in the past, karinding was not originally used for entertainment, but rather as a practical tool in daily life. The Sundanese people use its vibration and buzzing sound to repel pests in the rice fields, as it was believed to drive insects away from the crops. In addition, the karinding also served as a simple means of communication, with certain sound function as codes to signal danger or to call someone from a distance. Maybe that's the answer, and thank you.
Thank you, Rama, for your response. That is a good research about karinding from you, Rama. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the next our presentation is Muhammad Januar Indra. Januar, the stage is yours, Januar.
Hello everyone, let me introduce myself first. So my name is Muhammad Januar Indra Praja and I'm come from Indonesian University of Informatics and Business. So today I'm gonna present my research that's titled Security Testing of the Research Collaboration Community Conference Website Against DDoS HTTP Flood Attacks using the NIST SP 800-115 framework. Now let's begin from the introduction first. So, distributed denial of service, or DDoS, is a common type of cybersecurity attacks that targets availability of a website or a system, something like that. And one of the kind of the DDoS attack is HTTP flood. And the object of this research is RCC conference website that is still in the stage of a development and it's not yet in public for use. So the objective of this research is testing aims to assess readiness against attacks, the DDoS attacks, and the goal is to give the developer recommendations for the security of the website. And the focus of this research is the login and registration page of the website. Okay, this is the methodology. So this picture right here is, I took it from the NIST SP 800-115 framework that consists of 4 phases, that is planning, discovery, attack, and reporting. And we're gonna discuss it later. And the tools that I used in this research is GoldenEye, Slowloris, Nmap, EtherApe, TCP-DOM, VNstat, and HTOP. Okay, first we enter the planning phases. So in these phases, we defined the target, that is obviously the RCC website, especially the login and registration pages. And here we set the attack parameters and durations, and we prepare the monitoring tools on server and attacker VM. So each on the server and the attacker virtual machine has its own monitoring tools. And then we enter the discovery phases. And in these phases, there's this tool called Nmap that is used for identifying open ports and running services. And then in this discovery of the baseline or normal traffic, we use the EtherApe, TCP-DOM, VNstat, and HTOP tools. And based on the results we gathered, that in these discovery phases there's no unusual activity before testing. It's because we haven't do the attack. And as you can see in the left picture, that is showing the log of or results of the Nmap that towards the server IP, and as you can see, it it tells that the host is up, so the website is up, and then the right one is the TCP dump log, or the results. So it shows that there's 10 packets captured, like in this 1 minute of capturing, so there's not much happening because the attack is not even it's not even happening. And then we have the EtherApe interfaces in the left, and it's only like a bit of line, and there's nothing else because there's nothing happening right now. And then below it is the VNstat. It records hourly, and in the time of 5 seconds, the traffic and the receive and transferred happening, like in right now, like the 5 seconds of the time. And then the right picture one is the HTOP interfaces that shows the CPU, memory, load, and everything that is happening in the website, the server one. And then we enter the attack phase. So in this phases, the GoldenEye tools, the attacker, it directs the attacks the login and register pages with 20 agents and 20 workers. So it's basically like 400 packets or traffic, so it is big, and it's observed in the time of 2 minutes. And then the slowest one, the slowest one, you can only attack from the IP, and you can attack it directly to the pages with consists of 1,000 sockets, and we observe it in a time of 5 minutes because Slowloris is slower to take impact than the GoldenEye. And both of these attacks is monitored via server-side tools, the tools that I've mentioned before. And then the last phase is the reporting phase. In this phase, we do some documenting of the traffic spike and resource usage, and then from the results we gather, the GoldenEye has that CPU and bandwidth surge, so it degraded the response of the website. And then the Slowloris one, the effect is negligible on performance, so it's barely taking any significance than the GoldenEye. Okay, so we enter the results, and this one is from GoldenEye. As you can see, the right picture, it's we attacking the login page right now, and as you can see at the right bottom, the HTOP interface. So the CPU is already higher, like at 90%, and then the loads and everything is higher because the attack is really heavy. And then the EtherApe too, like it's not just a line anymore, like it's the whole screen of the EtherApe is yellow, so because it is that the attack is that heavy and big. And this picture is basically the same, but it's only on the register page, so it is the same that it's taking effects of the DDoS attacks like on the login page, so it is the same. And then here we have at the left is the TCP dump log, and this is captured like under a minute. So for under a minute, it's already capturing 70,000 packets. So it's really big, it's really heavy. So because it is really that crazy, the DDoS attacks. And then the right one, it's the VNstat, and as you can see that you can actually look at the hourly stats that the latest at the 10 p.m. it is shown that it's the traffic captured is bigger and heavier than the beforehand. And here we have the results of the Slowloris. So the Slowloris is different, and as you can see in the picture, in the HTOP, the VNstat, and the EtherApe, it's not really taking much a difference on the performance side. So it is not that big compared to the GoldenEye, because what it takes is just a minimal CPU or bandwidth change, and then the service of the website is no disruption. And as you can see, the TCP dump logs too, this is captured in a minute, in 1 minute, so it's only 8,000 packets compared to the 70,000 of the GoldenEye, so it's really, the difference is really big. So the conclusion and recommendation we have for this research is that GoldenEye is effective and the impact is bigger than the Slow Loris, and Slow Loris is ineffective under this current setup. And the RCC website security needs an improvement for DDoS resilience. And then the recommendations for the developer is to implement one of these is either .htaccess rules and mod evasive. So it's a configuration that you can set in like Linux web server based like that. And then we recommend the developer to continuously monitoring, because you'll never know when the attack is happening, so better to careful. And this is some reference I take for my reference for my research, sorry. And this is my contact person if you want to contact me or ask me a question about my research. And that's all from me. So thank you everyone for the participation, and thank you for the attention, and as always, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Januar. This is an excellent presentation from Januar Indra Praja. Januar, I have a question from the audience. The question is, why did you choose the NHT SP 800 105 framework for the testing method?
Okay, so I personally choose the NIST 800 and 115 is because that is the standard that comes from America that usually takes on like IT computer stuff like that. And then because it provides a structured four-phase penetration testing methodology that is really suitable for my cases. Yeah, for my for my test. And it helped me organize the testing process from a planning to reporting, and ensuring that the simulation of HTTP flood and the attacks that I do beforehand to the website followed a clear and standardized procedure. So yeah, that's from me.
Okay, thank you, Januar. Thank you all the presenter. Thank you for your presentation all. Maybe Januar is the last our presenter in this session. We will take a picture of this session. Rama, Amira, maybe we have time to take a picture. Okay, operator, maybe can help take our picture. Okay, take a picture one. Okay, the second and the third. Okay, thank you, Januar, thank you, Rama, and thank you, Amira, for your presentation. This session is arrived at the end. All your presentation is a great information for us. Maybe in the next presentation, in next conference, all of you maybe can become join again. Thank you, Januar. Thank you, Rama. Thank you, Amira. This is at the end of the session. Thank you for all, and bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. Rama, Januar, and Amira, you can leave a break room and go to the main room again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Amira.